for a minute. Where were you born?
I'm born in West Texas. West Texas, Lubbock.
Who are your parents and what were their occupations?
Well, my dad was a seaman. My mother died when I was 5. And probably the mom that I was the most closest to after my dad married several times was a beautician. And my dad was a seaman, so he came back from World War II, and he just really had to get back to the ocean, so that was good for him.
Okay. And do you have any siblings?
I have a sister. She's in up north here, just in San Francisco Bay Area. Got some brothers and sisters that are stepsisters and stepbrothers.
Okay. And do any of them serve in the military?
My stepbrother was on the Enterprise during Vietnam, and we communicated some back and forth then. But that was it.
Okay. What were you doing before you entered the service?
I was a pediatric nurse.
And where were you at?
I was in Oklahoma City Hospital for Children, and took care of little ones.
Oh. What branch of the military did you serve?
Well, I started out in the Air National Guard. This was in 1967. And I wanted to go into the Air Force. Whenever I did my active duty, you do active duty for a couple of weeks. And I thought, well, that's what I want to do. So I wanted to go in the Air Force as a flight nurse. And they informed me that I had to be a captain or a major, that they weren't putting flight nurses in Vietnam. So I was complaining so much that the people in my squadron just said, why don't you just join the Army? So I did. I joined the Army. And so,
did you enlist? Did you enlist? Because women weren't drafted back then.
well, you know, women were not, we were volunteers.
Yeah.
I didn't even know we enlisted. We enlisted.
Okay. What happened when you departed from training camp and during your early days of training?
You know, not anything dramatic. Is that what you don't want? Anything dramatic?
Well, did anything dramatic happen?
Well, yeah. You know, as ladies, as girls, I probably flirted. Anyway, they had this one lieutenant colonel and he had a Huey helicopter, and he brought that to Camp Bullis, and whatever team finished first in the navigational, they get to go up in this helicopter. We didn't finish first, but this lieutenant colonel says, would you like to have a ride, Lieutenant? And so we agreed to have a night ride, and I went, this is Fort Sam Houston, and I took some insurance with me. I took another girl, and we got all strapped in, and he told me, he said, there's Interstate 35 over on your left, and our heading is north. Now you can take the controls. I thought, you can take the sticks, what he said. Oh my God, you want, and so I did. I looked at that stick and I just pulled it, and we went like, whoop. And then I pulled it the other way, we went whoop this way. And you know, then obviously we were going to crash, so he took over and was going to So anyway, what was your question? That probably stayed in my mind more than anything. All the training I got, whatever. We were trained at at Fort Sam Houston, trained to be combat nurses. If you keep doing that, she'll do worse.
I don't mind if you don't mind.
It distracts me.
Okay.
Anyway, we were trained to be able to go over into Vietnam. Everybody's going to Vietnam or Korea. And so I don't remember a lot of my training. I remember the night ride in a Huey.
Mm-hmm. That was what sticks out the most in your training. Do you recall your instructors?
I know the one that was my Air Force instructor was Major Marsh, and she pin my flight nurse wings on. I thought that was really neat. And so I remember her. The other ones, I don't remember any of their names except her. And I have a picture of her, so that's probably the reason I remember her name.
Okay. Did you have any other specialized training aside from medical?
Well, we started out with flight nurse training at Brooke Air Force Base in San Antonio. So that was specialized. It was very specialized, detailed. The one at Fort Sam Houston, the basic training, was trying to get us geared to thinking mass wounds, mass injuries, and things like that. We learned how to put in tracheostomies in flight, and things that were emergency. We learned how to do emergency stuff.
So, in comparison to civilian life, how did you adapt to military life with like physical regimens, barracks, food, lifestyle?
Oh, that was terrible. In comparison to civilian life, the military life was so regimented. They told you when to get up, when to lay down, where to be, what to dress to look like, and things like this. So I was trying to get on their way of thinking because I'm from Texas and we didn't think that way. So I think I answered your question, didn't I?
Yes. Okay, so where exactly did you serve?
First of all, I was in the Air Guard, and we always went to Vietnam to serve. Out of Vietnam, or we'd go into the Pacific Theater, Southeast Asia Theater, and so we'd come out of Japan and take the patients from Japan back to the States, and then we'd head back. So we did that, but in Vietnam itself, I served in 3 hospitals. But my main hospital was right in I Corps, right on the beach. It's not like it was a vacation, but it really was on the beach, but it wasn't a vacation.
So when you were in Vietnam, what is the memory that stands out the most to you?
You just can't do one memory.
Okay.
We were trained to take care of people that came in groups, in platoons. But the things that really stand out the most to me was probably we had a Phu Het village between Tuiwa Air Base and our camp was Phu Het village. So I had this guy. They weren't just really bad injured. I remember him leaning over the desk and saying, what did he tell me? Ma'am, I want to go to the village. So I worked probably 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I looked at him and said, you want to go to the village? I said, you can't do that. I said, it's mind. Like, mind. He was from the 173rd Airborne. And he looks at me and he said, ma'am, it's been a long time.
Oh.
And I look at him and I say, soldier, this isn't a whorehouse. This is a hospital. Oh, he just looks at me. And so I told him, I said, I'm going over to the Vietnamese ward and take care of those patients. I've had enough of talking to you. So I went back over to the GI ward because something just told me to go back. And I found him in his bed. It was probably about 8 o'clock in the evening, maybe 9. And his covers were pulled up. He was in his bed first, which is kind of unusual. And his covers were pulled up to his neck. And I looked at him. I said, you having a chill, soldier? Yes, ma'am. He kind of turned his head away from me. And I said, I pulled his blanket down a little bit, army wool blanket. And he was totally dressed in his fatigues. Boots, the whole bit. I said, you always sleep with your boots on? Oh, ma'am, these boots go everywhere I do. Yeah, I bet they do. So I didn't know what to do. So I had him sit up and I said, untie your boots. Let me have your boots. So I took his boots and he said, oh, ma'am, don't take my boots. And I thought, I went back to the Vietnamese ward and I was over there doing whatever needed to be done. And this soldier comes over here as a patient, and he says, taps me on the shoulder and said, "Ma'am, Jake went to the village and he is not back." And I said, I know I cursed. As I went back over there, and I thought, you know what? I've got to tell the sergeant, because I'm going to be in trouble. First of all, something happens to him. I needed to get the sergeant involved way before then, but if you get the sergeant involved, no telling what he would do to that kid. So I just get my corpsman to find the master sergeant, the sergeant that was on duty that night. I said, "You go find him and bring him here so I can talk to him." And then when this kid walks in the end of the ward, barefooted, and I looked at him, I was so put out. I looked at him, I said, "You know what? They trained you how to jump out of an airplane and how to land in a jungle and not get killed." I said, "But they didn't give you any common sense at all, did they?" And he says, "No." He said, "Ma'am, I'm so sorry." I said, "I don't want to hear what you say." I said, "I just want you to go home. I want you to go home to your mom with your arms and your legs. I don't know where your head is, but you need to go home to your mom well. That's what we want you to do." That's probably what stuck in my mind the most.
So, did you see? I know as a nurse, I know you're in the hospital, but were you involved in any? Were you in the action at all, in the combat at all?
Whenever we were going to get incoming, they would tell us, like the weather report. So one night I was way down the Delta. I didn't really know this people very much, but I told this guy, this sergeant, this corpsman, I said, "I think they told us we're going to have problems tonight." And I tell him, "Now this person and this over here, put a blanket over them. This one, lay their IV down by their side. These can go on the floor, put a blanket over them." And he looks at me and he said, "Ma'am, I sure hope you can do all that by yourself, because I'm going to be back here behind the refrigerator." I couldn't argue with him. I just said, I all of a sudden I just had 17 patients that I had to take care of instead of splitting it. So I'm just thinking, and so we did get patients. We got, they were the 9th Infantry that was being hit that night. So they came in, and whenever they started coming in, this corpsman was just right there beside me. We worked like a team. I thought, I'm so naive. I mean, he probably said that not believing that I believe him, but I believed him. So yeah, I think I didn't remember your question. What was your question?
Oh, if you saw.
Okay. So that particular night, we could hear the the helicopters, Cobras. We could hear them whop, 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 and there was elephant grass around us, and you could look out and you see their beam going right down, real steady beam going right down into the elephant grass. So they spread the elephant grass and they could expose the VC in there. So that was probably the closest we've come. I'm just hoping that one of them didn't run out and run into our hospital and try to keep, hold one of us hostage. That was my fear. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of did you make a lot of friends or comrades while you were serving, and do you still keep in touch with them?
Okay. At Tuiwad, there was an air base, and I was Air Force before I was Army, so I had a lot of Air Force friends in a couple of squadrons. One squadron was from New Mexico Air National Guard, 188, and they were just regular civilians sent to war. They were so much fun. And then the other one was 309. They were sister squadrons. So they had a lieutenant's club. And they always put them on the night shift. So they'd go like Batman, and, this one is whatever night creature, sound of the night. And they put them up on the board. So that's what the lieutenants did. They were all very professional. But they were my friends. And so I've gone back to 2 or 3 reunions of the people at Tuiwa that were the officers. And then I've gone to a reunion of the people at Tuiwa that just everybody. So yeah, I've kept contact with them. Now from the Army, I know a couple of people from the Army, but when we were split, we were not there in a group. One person went out, another went out like that. The women, they all changed their names to another name. I don't know.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends?
Family and friends. We had, did you hear about the Mars system where a beam would go from the Mars radio in Vietnam, hit off of a satellite, then it hit back onto a person that was doing a ham radio, would pick it up, and then they would call the number in the United States.
Oh, wow.
So they did that, and you would have to know that you were talking on a radio, like over, or the person wouldn't know you stopped talking. And New Mexico had Barry Goldwater, and he paid for all the calls that came in. I don't know whatever else. Let's tell you about that, just FYI. So we did that. We had a Mars radio in Tuiwa. They had one over in a Fuhet compound, and sometimes they'd say, we've got a good lineup. Do any of your patients want to talk? So I had one patient that just sat there at the nurse's desk because we had a telephone thing. He was talking through a crank telephone. And I said, say something. I said, your time is up. He said, then where he couldn't talk. He was just sitting there in the wheelchair. I said, why didn't you talk? And he says, I couldn't. She's crying the whole time.
Oh.
It's some little soldier, you know. But ours are the best thing I can think about this Mars radio is one of the gals said, Judy, come on, take me over to Tuiwa, because I need to try to see if there's a lineup. I need to talk to my husband. So we had a Jeep, and so I took her over there, and her voice would not carry over the cable. So what she wanted to tell her husband was that she was pregnant. So she's saying, honey, I'm pregnant, and she wouldn't carry. So finally, one of the guys there in the Mars radio station said, you mind if I try it? Oh, go try. So he said, honey, I'm pregnant. And I tell you, it picks up, bounces all the way across the Pacific. So somebody in Guam said, you guys would do anything to get out of Vietnam, wouldn't you? So that was how we kept contact. By the way, you know, if the Army put you through school, regardless of whether you were married or not, you volunteered to go, you know, overseas. So that's why she was there.
Okay, so when you were off duty, what did you do for fun?
Well, sometimes we just laid out because we're by a beach. But a lot of times I would just get away from the hospital. I would hitchhike over to the air base. Well, one thing we could do is we had tapes, reel-to-reel tapes. They were 7-inch. And you go into the tape center, and it was air conditioning. That was so nice. And you can make tape. Or another thing was that was probably the most thing that you could do that would be hands-on. Most of the time I'd just go over to the air base to the guys at 309th and just hang out with them. That was... Oh, what did I tell you about? Oh, that's okay.
No, go ahead.
Well, they would invite us places, the nurses. So they had a Navy. Gun Road Bay was all Navy, a little inlet where it accepted ships. So they invited us there. So we would get into a Jeep. I think it was probably more than one Jeep because it's probably more than one nurse. And it would be sandbagged all over the floor, and then there'd be a 50-millimeter machine gun on the back of it. And they took us over hill, over dale, over there and they'd have steaks. And they took us to let us get out in the ocean and big rocks and stuff like that. It's just beautiful. I got to water ski. Of course, everybody watched me water ski, but it was behind a swift boat. it is very swift. A swift boat has, so anyway, that was one thing we did. We'd get sometimes, and then sometimes we'd go on med caps. We'd go into the villages, and really there's not much that you can do, but you're really just kind of putting yourself out there and that you're a kind, K-I-N-D, kind person. So we give them, we try to give them antibiotics, but what they do is that they'll take them all at one time, or they'll dole them out to somebody else like it's pennies. It was kind of, we knew that maybe all we're doing is just trying to give a little bit of camaraderie with the people in the village. That was about it.
So where were you when you found out that the war ended?
I was in 75? It was in 75. I was watching it on TV. I was married. I had a 76. I had a baby in 76. I was watching it on TV. Watching the whole thing with Saigon and the embassy.
Where were you when you found out that you were going to be going home?
We're going to be going home?
Mm-hmm.
You always knew you was going home. You knew when you was going home. And I was at the air base, and I could have gone matriculated out, go down to Saigon, get in line, get on the... So these guys there at the air base said, we are going to the Philippines. Judy, just get on with us. So I got on a C-130.
Sorry.
Okay, you want to know where I was whenever I knew I was going home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You knew you were going home. And these guys from the C-130 says, go with us. We're going to the Philippines. And I thought it was just like, sure, we'll go to the Philippines. I'll just get my ride on home. It wasn't that way. When I got to the Philippines, every teacher over there was lined up to go home. And I looked at this airman and I said, put me on a flight because I am going home. I need to go home. He didn't realize how bad.
But did he do it?
Yeah, I mean, probably scared him, but yeah.
So, how was it when you came home? How were you received by your community and your family?
With your family, you're okay. When I immediately came home, when I first came home, I was at Travis Air Base, and you had to get over to San Francisco International to get back to Dallas in Oklahoma. And I was in my fatigues. They told me not to wear my fatigues, but I did. So I got on a flight, and there was a little boy next to the window, then his mother, then me. The little boy was about 10 or 12 years old. He spit on me. And his mother didn't say anything to him, with this stewardess came and said, ma'am, why don't you come on with me? I don't know, and I think that mother thought they were going to put me off the plane. She put me in first class, and I came on home, so.
Did you have reactions like that from a lot of people?
They didn't know I went to Vietnam. Yeah, you just didn't tell people. I pretty quick, you learn not to say you were in the military. Not just even just to say you weren't in the military at all, so.
That makes me really angry for you. I'm sorry. How was it for you to readjust to civilian life?
Well, it's been so long ago. I worked the night shift. I had a guy that I was concerned about that was working are you trying to fan that thing? Working the day shift.
Sorry.
He was flying during the day, and I was working during the night. I could pray for him. So it was not really very easy. It was hard.
Are you a member of any veterans organizations now? And
MOAA, military or organization. I don't know what the name of it is. And FWA.
And why did you choose those in particular?
And one of them is really for the people that are not enlisted, and the Military Officers Association in America, that is obviously officers. They're just two different. They're just two poles different.
Okay. What have you done since separating from the military?
Raised two kids. I have a son that's 38 and a daughter that's 40. And let's see, I was single parent for them until they went on to college. And for the son, he was in wrestling, he was in everything. What have I done? I've gone to Europe a lot. I have friends there, and so I've visited there. I took my kids there, and but since I've been about the last 10 years of my nursing, I did travel nursing. So I went from Washington State to Washington, D.C., and just all the parks in between. Just had a really good time of getting to know America. So,
how did your wartime experience affect your life?
It affects me because we have right now, let's see, we've been with Wounded Warrior Association. We've been serving meals at Balboa Hospital to them once a month, and we started that 8 years ago. I don't know what 8 years ago would be, but they were coming out of Iraq, and they were wounded, and they didn't have legs, they didn't have arms. The first dinner we did, we were going around picking up the salt and pepper shakers and things, and for some reason I was back behind the serving table, and I see this moving. It's got his back straight, like it's got a rod in his back, and comes over this way, makes a left, comes this way. It's a Marine, and he's in his digicams, and he comes up to the table, and he picks up a plate, and I wasn't even serving, but I thought, okay, I'm going to serve him, ready to leave, and he picks up a plate, and I put some, some bread there, and I said, I looked at him, he looked at me, and he just had half a face. And the rest of his face was real, it wasn't scarred, it was just gone. And I just thought, okay, I put some meat on his bun, and I thought, do not take your eyes off of him. Don't gasp. I just hear me, so I can hear myself talking. So I just said, do you want barbecue sauce on that meat, son? He said, yes, ma'am. Then I just looked at him and I said, you're not always going to look like this. I said, they can do miracles now. And he said, they've already done a miracle, and I know that I'll look better. I thank you, ma'am. And he turned around and he walked back to a place behind where their TV is, but it's behind there, and it's a private TV, and they can sit back there, and they're by themselves, and that's where he walked. And he sat down, and I thought, he probably had his counselor say, I want you to go to that dinner. I want you to go to supper tonight. I want you to go there. Just go there. So he, 2 minutes before we closed, he came in, and then he sat where he wasn't interacting with anybody, but at least he did whatever they asked him to do. So my volunteer wasn't with USO, but now it's with the Wounded Warrior, it's Marine Mothers, and they take care of the Navy and the Marines, and they're out here at Balboa Hospital. Now, initially we had everybody. We even had a couple of Coast Guard, but we had Army, we had patients of all branches that were wounded. Now we don't. Now it's basically, the Army is over at whatever it is on the East Coast, and we have the Marines up here and the Navy here. So I forgot what your question was. That's what we do.
No, that's a good answer. I think you answered both of the next questions, actually. Okay. What message, if you could speak to future generations that are going into the military right now, what would you tell them?
Be proud. Be proud. We're proud of you. We're glad you're there. That's it.
Awesome.
Is there anything that you feel that we haven't discussed that you would like to let us know about, put in the video?
Well, I think we need to come home from Mideast. We are at a place where we would go into Asia, and all we had was this cookie cutter government that we could give people. This is the way it works for us. So you do this A, B, C, D, and this is the way it's going to work for you. It's the same way with Mideast. They've been doing this since Abraham and his other son went out in the wilderness. And they have a whole different culture and mindset than we do. And I don't think they'll ever have government that is elected. I think Israel has the only one. I don't know that it'll ever be that way because they're so seeped in their culture. I think we just need to come home. Need to come home and take care of ourselves at home.
Well, you've answered every question.
Is that it?
So
Okay.
we're good. Yeah, we're very good. Thank you.
To master gunner.